Morrowind, Oblivion, Fallout 3, Skyrim, Fallout 4, this thing?
Nice heels.
That is unlike anything. It just looks not like it doesn't even belong in the game.
No, it's from a different game. Look how high up on the arm the Pip-Boy is.
What happened? Within the last 3 years, Bethesda Game Studios have gone from being one of the last few game developers that could be trusted to deliver a quality game, to now not even being able to deliver a canvas bag. Let's take a look at how Bethesda Game Studios spent more than a decade earning their good name, only to lose it all in just 3 short years. The year is 2001, and Bethesda Softworks, publisher of games like Doom and Wolfenstein, have just established a new division of their company, Bethesda Game Studios. This division would be Bethesda's in-house development team. In an interview with Cinema Blend, Todd Howard, yes, that Todd Howard, says the company was spreading itself thin in the early 2000s, and after 2 unsuccessful Elder Scrolls games, Bethesda was headed for financial ruin. In 2002, Bethesda Game Studios released their first game, The Elder Scrolls III: Morrowind, which was met with universal praise and sold over 4 million copies in the first 3 years. This game essentially saved the company from collapse and showed Bethesda how much potential the Elder Scrolls series had. People loved Morrowind because it had a complex, layered storyline that wasn't black and white, a quest design that didn't hold your hand, a massive, aesthetically unique map to explore, and an overall depth which hadn't been matched by any other 3D RPG at the time. Oh, and there were the mods. The game ran on the Gamebryo engine, and Bethesda uploaded the tools that they used to make the game onto the internet, so people could easily mod their games. Some of the mods added new content to the game, and a few even fixed some glitches and bugs. This game was a promising start for Bethesda Game Studios. People couldn't wait to see what was next for the Elder Scrolls series. After developing a poorly selling racing game, Bethesda released The Elder Scrolls IV: Oblivion, which was another hit. This game was a lot more accessible to the casual gamer as it was a more streamlined experience. It removed a few elements from Morrowind, such as the ability to combine spells, and it also had a smaller array of skills to pick from. The game was also made easier through added quest markers, which removed any thought to doing quests, and they added the ability of fast travelling to anywhere on the map. A few people were unhappy with the watered down experience and the typical fantasy themed world, but the rest of the game held up well. The soundtrack was arguably the best in the series, and the game had many interesting and well written quests, the most famous example being the Dark Brotherhood questline. Once again, there were many bugs that Bethesda never bothered fixing, so modders got to work. Also, you might have heard of the Horse Armor DLC thing. Bethesda literally tried selling Horse Armor as DLC, but overall, Oblivion was a solid game. In 2004, Bethesda bought the rights to make a sequel to Fallout 2, after Fallout's publisher, Interplay, was having a hard time financially. Bethesda's version of Fallout 3 released in 2008, made on the same engine as Oblivion and Morrowind. Bethesda assigned game designer Emil Pagliarulo, I think that's how you say it, to be the head writer for this game, and all games going forward, which was a big mistake. To say this guy can't write very well is putting it lightly. This meant the story was much weaker than was to be expected from a Fallout game, so many traditional Fallout fans, being used to strong writing and player choice, were very disappointed with the game. Game director Todd Howard boasted 200 different endings to the game, which in reality ended up being only 3, with a bunch of small quest outcomes added to the end. Bethesda added the special system and a comprehensive skill and perk system to the game. The movement and gunplay were also extremely janky, which made it hard to aim, but the new iteration of VATS, which froze time and allowed you to select body parts to shoot, helped with the clunky shooting. The change from an isometric world to a 3D one brought many new casual players to the table, and the game sold very well. Overall, a big success for Bethesda. Bethesda let some of the original developers of Fallout, who worked at Obsidian Entertainment, work on the Fallout 3 they had originally planned before going bankrupt. In the contract for the game, Bethesda stated that this new Fallout, earning a Metacritic score of 85 or higher, would grant Obsidian a pay bonus. Bethesda only gave them 17 months to make the game, and it was rushed out in late 2010, before many bugs could be fixed. The game-breaking bugs caused the game's Metacritic score to stoop just below the target, hitting 84. As a result, Bethesda did not pay Obsidian, and they therefore had serious financial issues, resulting in a few layoffs. After the game was finally fixed, it was praised as one of the best RPGs of all time. It combined the great writing, story, characters and player choice of the original Fallouts, while bringing it into a more accessible 3D world. This game really showed Bethesda's Fallout 3 up in terms of storytelling, revealing the flaws Bethesda had in their own games, and people have been asking for another Obsidian-made Fallout ever since. It was late 2011, and The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim had just been released. People loved it. For many, this was their first entry into the series, and the huge map, incredible soundtrack, and overall abundance of content made for a very popular game that sold very well. Todd Howard was back at it with the lies, the most notorious two being, "See that mountain over there? You can climb it." And that the game had infinite quests. If you've played Skyrim, you know that both of those aren't true. Once again, Bethesda watered down the experience, removing skills entirely, and making quests much simpler and shorter when compared to Morrowind, and even Oblivion. This game was far less of an RPG, and it was by far the most dumbed down Elder Scrolls so far, and people called Bethesda out for it. It's also worth mentioning that the main storyline, being written by Emil, was very average. The game ran on a heavily modified version of the now 14-year-old Gamebryo engine, renamed the Creation Engine. The Bethesda fanbase were now accustomed to modding this engine, resulting in the modding scene for Skyrim becoming massive, with as of 2018, just under 60,000 mods uploaded to the Nexus. Many of Skyrim's bugs never ended up being fixed, because Bethesda knew modders would do their work for them. This was Bethesda's 4th game in a row that had won the Game of the Year award, and Todd Howard was crowned the mighty God Howard. Although this game was even more watered down than Oblivion, this was Bethesda's biggest success yet. This is also where the Bethesda we used to know began to fade away. Fallout 4 was potentially the most hyped game of 2015. It had been 5 long years since we had even heard from the Fallout franchise, and people were beyond excited to see what Fallout 4 had in store. People were expecting Bethesda to build from the numerous improvements Obsidian had made with New Vegas, and give us an even better game. What we were instead given was a completely stripped, dumbed down version of Fallout 3. Skills were completely removed from the game, gun condition was gone, dialogue was completely butchered, every location that seemed interesting just ended up being a shoot 'em up fest, and the list goes on. It was no longer an RPG. What Bethesda had instead focused their attention on was FPS elements like gunplay and gameplay. Also, a new addition, inspired by Minecraft, allowed the crafting and building of your own settlement. The new players that Fallout 4 brought in generally enjoyed it, and as of today, it has beaten Skyrim in sales, proving it was a success. But the more traditional Fallout fans were less than impressed. The game also ran on the now very aging Creation Engine, which meant the game looked dreadful. A lot of people really didn't like this game, and the general direction Bethesda was heading in. It was the first in their last 5 games not to win Game of the Year award by the majority of the shows. Fallout 4 was a definite step backwards for the franchise, and people were not happy about it. It's often referred to as a good game, but a terrible Fallout, and I think that's a pretty accurate description. After release, Bethesda announced that they were going to make more Fallout 4 DLC than originally planned, so they said that in March 2016, they were going to bump up the Season Pass price from $30 to $50. Many believe this was a marketing trick to get more people to buy the Season Pass. At this point, they hadn't actually detailed what the Season Pass would include, and it ended up only being 2 full expansions and a small questline DLC. The rest of the Season Pass turned out to be what would be expected from free post-launch updates. I'm talking, of course, about the 3 workshop DLCs, which added a couple dozen things to build settlements with. No one expected nor wanted the workshop DLCs, and had Bethesda announced that that's what 3 of the DLCs would be, far fewer people would have purchased the Season Pass. Bethesda was heavily criticised for the amount of times they re-released Skyrim. You had the original Skyrim, then you had the Legendary Edition, then you had the Elder Scrolls Anthology, then you had the Special Edition, then you had the Switch port, and finally the VR version. People just wanted a new game from Bethesda. Not the same game again and again, but this time it's playable on a toaster. It turns out it wouldn't be too long before we got a brand new game, but let's talk about that later. After Todd and the team were finishing milking Skyrim for everything it was worth, the Creation Club was released. This was where Bethesda really began to lose a lot of credibility. A big appeal to Bethesda games was that there was always an absence of microtransactions, which made the company seem a lot more reliable and consumer friendly. That all changed when they created a shop for mods, i.e. the Creation Club. The Creation Club allowed you to buy mods made by the top modders working with Bethesda. The mods that shipped with the release were an absolute joke. There it is, there's that old horse armour again, and the prices they slapped on these things were just stupid. What's also hilarious is some of the mods listed on there were already available on the Nexus, for free. Nice one guys, nice one. So it's 2017, and at this point, Bethesda have confirmed they are working on their new IP, Starfield. The game after Starfield is expected to be The Elder Scrolls 6. It was expected to be a long time before we saw another Bethesda title, so when a new Fallout game was leaked days before E3 2018, people went a little bit crazy. Would it be the highly anticipated New Vegas sequel, or maybe Fallout 5 skipped the queue? It was none of these things, and no one was prepared for what it turned out to be. It turned out to be an online, base building survival game, similar to that of Rust, except it was less hardcore, and it had a storyline to follow. This was hilariously hypocritical, as just a few months before, they had released a video called #SavePlayer1, where they talk about saving single player games in general, in an industry that's becoming more and more multiplayer only. Bethesda released a beta, only playable after pre-ordering the game, which was essentially the whole game 2 weeks before release. This meant that it wasn't really a beta, as they had no chance of patching the bugs before release. They also announced that the game wouldn't come out on Steam, and would instead come out exclusively on Bethesda's own launcher. People assume this is so Bethesda wouldn't have to pay Steam 30% of every sale. After having pre-downloaded 50 GB for the first day of beta, PC players were shocked to find that as soon as they launched it, the Bethesda launcher had literally deleted the whole game. How does that even happen? This was not the only thing Bethesda did to annoy PC gamers, as they had literally just ported the game to PC without making any changes to make it better suited for the platform. FOV sliders, push-to-talk, and text chat were all absent, as well as the ability to change the terribly mapped controls. After downloading patches with file sizes larger than the game itself, even though these patches only fixed a handful of things, the game was in a playable state. The game's storyline was essentially following a trail of holotapes around the map, even though you didn't care what was being said because everyone voicing them was dead, because Bethesda decided not to include human NPCs in the game. If you played this game with a group of friends, like it's intended to be played, you'll never even hear a word of what's being said on them anyway. Once again, on the now ancient Creation engine, the game looked about 8 years behind its time. It did not have 16 times the detail of Fallout 4, like Todd had promised.
It allows us to have 16 times the detail. 16 times the detail.
The game-breaking bugs and glitches were back with a bang.
It's like downed.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
Bethesda hadn't even bothered to fix an engine bug persisting since Morrowind. That meant if you were playing on PC and your FPS went above 60, the game would literally speed up. And then there's the Metacritic score. Yeah, that says it all really. The game was around the same quality as a free-to-play game, but Bethesda charged the AAA price of $60. After only a few weeks, the game had sales of up to 50%, indicating how badly this train wreck of a game sold. The game's physical sales were down 82% compared to Fallout 4 in the UK, just to give you an idea, but it's also worth considering that digital purchases have been on the rise. As you can tell, this was a mess in every department, and at this point, a lot of traditional fans gave up hope on the franchise ever returning to form. They played the original Fallouts for a good story, world, characters, and player choice, not building, gunplay, and PvP. In my opinion, the only redeemable thing this game has is the map. But what's the point when there's nothing to do in it? The game engine did not do this game any favours, and the poor graphics and glitches can be blamed on the age-old technology. Bethesda also recently announced that both of their next games, Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6, would run on the same engine. Now they will have added and fixed some things with it by then, but there's no denying this engine is terribly outdated, and this has fans a lot less excited for the two games. Bethesda advertised a canvas bag as an extra accessory for the $200 Power Armor edition of Fallout 76. But to many fans' surprise, when they unboxed their $200 edition, there was no canvas bag. There was, however, a terribly cheap nylon bag. This was blatantly false advertising, and upon emailing Bethesda about the issue, they responded with this: "Hello, we are sorry that you aren't happy with the bag. The bag shown in the media was a prototype and was too expensive to make. We aren't planning on doing anything about it." And then they offered 500 atoms as compensation, which equals $5 of in-game content. After realising that this whole situation could result in a class action lawsuit, they decided to ship canvas bags to everyone who ordered the Power Armor edition. You applied for the bag by showing proof of purchase, your address, name, and so on. And then it turned out that many of these applications, containing extremely personal information, got leaked because normal Bethesda accounts were getting sent the support tickets instead of Bethesda. I have no idea how a company this size fails on so many levels, but it is hilarious to watch. Bethesda have angered a lot of PC gamers after announcing that Rage 2 will also release exclusively on their launcher. People on PC already have to deal with Steam, Origin, Uplay and Epic Launcher. The last thing they need is a shoddy Bethesda launcher that can't even run a game without deleting all of the files for it. Unless Rage 2 suffers from extremely poor sales on PC, it looks like this is the way all Bethesda titles are going to launch from now on. About the only part of Fallout 76 that worked upon release was the Atomic Shop. The Atomic Shop is a marketplace where players can buy anything from weapon skins to base building items. This was Bethesda's way of making money post-launch, so they could release free content and not split up the player base. People were generally okay with the concept of the Atomic Shop, as long as it stayed cosmetic only. However, recently, the prices have gone ridiculously high. A single skin alone costing $18. For just $2 more, you could buy an expansion pack for The Witcher 3. Data miners have also discovered textures for a Vault Tech lunchbox, which Bethesda will likely include in one of the next patches. Over the years, we've seen Bethesda become lazier and lazier with each new release, relying on their community to mod patches to fix the game, dumbing down the RPG elements and story, and instead focusing more on gameplay, which is a trend not many are fond of. They are also, as of 2018, using an engine that's core is 21 years old. This is what is believed to be the root cause of a lot of Bethesda's game problems, including terrible lighting, graphics, optimization, and glitches. People used to have a real warm spot for Bethesda. Everyone could be sure the game they'd deliver would be quality, and there wouldn't be a microtransaction in sight. Unfortunately, they've spent the last 3 years tearing that reputation to the ground. They are also showing an insane amount of incapability for what is supposedly a AAA game developer. Fallout 76 has left Bethesda's fanbase with a first-degree burn that won't be forgotten easily. And with games like Obsidian's Outer Worlds and CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077 coming out soon, Bethesda need to get it together, or they might not be around for much longer.